Hey, sir, thanks for joining us. New violence in Cairo's Tahrir Square. Supporters of ousted President Hosni Mubarak clashed with pro-reform protesters. Protesters also say soldiers used violence to force hundreds of people to leave the central square. Mubarak supporters are accused of using knives, machetes and rocks when they stormed protesters camped out in the square. And funerals of some of the victims of the clashes between Christians and Muslims in Cairo are expected on Thursday. The death toll from Tuesday's fighting has risen to 13. Battles broke out when Muslims confronted Christians who were protesting the burning of their church last week. Egypt's Prosecutor General has launched an investigation. Thursday sees the opening of what Myanmar is touting as one of the biggest ever sales of precious gems. It's an opportunity for the government to flaunt its massive ruby industry, but what it won't be showing off is the virtual slavery in the business, where workers as young as 4 are exploited to prop up production. Despite strict controls on the presence of foreign journalists, AlJazeera has managed to get access to some of these mines in the country's Mogok region.
They are as young as 4 years old, cracking rocks in government-controlled mines, searching for one of the world's most precious jewels, the blood-red ruby. And this is how it all gets started. In the dark of night, dozens of miners take over property belonging to local farmers. They dig, hunting for the valuable gem. Armed men keep watch, leaving the rightful owners helpless to stop them.
We have been here the whole night trying to defend the land, but we can't control them. We won't get any compensation, and the police encourage this.
Supervising the operation is the local police chief and his army counterpart. Once rubies are found, the land is officially claimed by the state. We filmed the operation secretly, as foreigners are forbidden from visiting the area. The entire region of Mogok is off limits to outsiders. Its mines provide 90% of the world's ruby supply, and the government wields complete control. Locals who used to own property here often end up as virtual slaves to the ruby trade. It is hard, back-breaking work, and guards ensure the gems they do find are handed over. This man, a supervisor, tells us people here are given less than $1.50 a day for their efforts. We visit several mines, and in each are the elderly and more children. $216 US. And where's the rubies from? Mogok?
Mogok ruby, natural stone.
Natural stone. Here is where much of the jewels end up, government-run emporiums in the country's capital. Despite sanctions last year, the state earned a record $1.67 billion. Hala Win, a former military pilot and one of the country's biggest gem traders, tells us the pursuit of profits is fast exhausting the ruby supply.
Today, why the production of those ruby and sapphire went down? Because of, they have allowed to make the big money.
It's been a good haul on this day. Rubies now destined for international markets, with profits these workers will never see. AlJazeera, Mogok, Myanmar.
Now let's talk more about this issue with Larry Jagan. He's a Myanmar specialist based in Bangkok, Thailand. Thanks for joining us. These gems in Myanmar are worth something like $1.5 billion to the regime over there. They are ending up in international markets somewhere. Who's buying the gems?
Well, because of the sanctions, most of these gems are really ending up in Asian markets, particularly in China, in Thailand, the rest of Southeast Asia, to some extent South Korea and Taiwan. It's quite possible that once they've passed through the Asian ports that they end up in Europe and the United States, but they don't go there directly. I have to realize that a lot of these mines that are being mined at the moment are also actually owned by Chinese. It really is a case of sanction busting. But the money certainly goes to the cronies, that is the big businessmen who support the regime, and the generals themselves.
Now, what kind of pressure can be brought on Myanmar when we just looked at those pictures of children mining these gems there, what kind of pressure can be brought on Myanmar to stop this practice?
Well, one of the key things is that this area where the ruby mines are is actually along near the borders with China and Thailand, and it's essentially controlled by ethnic minority groups that have signed ceasefire agreements, and in other areas by the military. It's really cowboy country. There is no law and order there at all, except that comes out of the gang or the gun, and these militia are reaping massive profits, which they're turning into weapons to strengthen their position. The International Labour Organization is based in Myanmar, and it does try to stop child labour and forced labour, and we've obviously seen this is really quite high in the ruby areas. Apparently in other areas forced labour is perhaps not being used as much as it was in the past, but undoubtedly the ruby mining is a sore thumb. Now, of course, the Americans have got sanctions that are against the Burmese gems,
right.
and essentially this has really not prevented very much the gems coming out of the country to Asia.
Okay, Mr. Jagan, let's leave it there. Thanks for joining us. Now we have some breaking news out of Yemen, where the country's president, Ali Abdullah Saleh, has announced a transition to a parliamentary system. Let's get more on this now from our correspondent in Sana'a, Hashim Ahalbara. Hashim, what does this mean, this latest announcement?
This is the biggest concession offered by President Ali Abdullah Saleh just now. Well, basically what he's saying is that he's offering a major reform of the constitution to be adopted this year, and then a change of the political system. From now onwards, it's going to be the parliament which decides the future of the country, not the president. And the powers of the president will be transferred to a parliament democratically elected by the people of Yemen. The third major announcement made by President Ali Abdullah Saleh is a start of decentralization by the end of this year, and transferring powers from the capital, Sana'a, to provinces of the... It remains to be seen whether this is something that the opposition and the thousands of anti-government protesters who took to the streets of Yemen during the last few days will accept the concessions. The opposition so far boycotted this meeting by President Ali Abdullah Saleh, describing it as the beginning of the end of an old political system. The anti-government protesters are saying that the reform package offered by President Ali Abdullah Saleh is too little, too late, and that what we need is the departure of the president for us to be able to choose who should represent us.
Okay, thanks, Hashim. Hashim Halbara there from Sana'a. Okay, you're watching pictures there from Sana'a in Yemen, where the president has announced that he will be preparing a new constitution with a referendum for this year. That was announced by the president of Yemen, where there's been growing anti-government demonstrations over the past